Yep.
Sorry, we need to deal with Aaron Burr. I heard some questions about the face to start being able to have a place you can ask me questions. It's a place that I can also ask you questions. And please, I am going to start doing more with some review, more formal, what would look like quizzes. The biggest thing, folks, is some of you, I think, are too used to, you do not get much done outside of school. It was really cool. I was at the Packer game yesterday, and a young man years ago. And the young man basically was telling me that this class was the single most important class that he had in high school. The young man is now a lawyer, and he's in the U.S. Federal Court of Appeals. So he's not a normal lawyer. He also reminded me that one of the kids in his class is now a professor of Wisconsin-Madison and has been published. So ladies and gentlemen, I think part of what you need to understand is get yourself into good habits. Things that may seem like a pain, it's learning how to do things so that you understand where you want to go one day. Here we go. Before Mr. Hamilton gets shot.
Yep.
So we're at Weehawken, New Jersey. And have we begun the next one, the conspiracy?
Yes.
Did we get to the point where Aaron Burr contacted two other men? Gentlemen, let's summarize. Aaron Burr is the Vice President of the United States, and he will get to meet two other gentlemen. One, Mary, who was the Minister of England. And ladies and gentlemen, with Anthony Mary, there is a promise of English naval support and money. So what you want to do is you want to think of the three names and how each person is involved. Aaron Burr basically is going to plan to be the leader, the instigator. Anthony Mary is providing an alliance from England. England would like to see Louisiana fall to English control. And the last man is James Wilkinson, who is the governor of the Louisiana Territory. Yes, ma'am.
So Anthony Murray is England's what?
He's an actual Englishman, so he's the minister from England. So he's not an American going to England, he would be the Englishman here in the States. At this moment, where a lot of you are having trouble, is you are looking at this in terms of Aaron Burr and specific names, and that's not the point. Every Monday, Griffin comes into class and asks me about The Walking Dead. And I would imagine there's probably very little Griffin would like than if him and I would sit and talk about how we would survive a zombie apocalypse. What weapons he would use, what people you'd want along. What do you think? You think we can handle that? Ladies and gentlemen, I would imagine some of you in this room have gotten into far-fetched conversations. Could we survive zombies? Could we rob a bank? Could we pull off the greatest prank of all time? Could we kill someone and get away with it? And ladies and gentlemen, think about the weirdness here. Some of those are very illegal activities. But in all honesty, that's kind of where Hollywood gets a lot of their ideas from. As Americans, we have the right to think and speak. The problem is we don't necessarily have the right to act and do on those things. Ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the Burr conspiracy, what you want to think of is Aaron Burr, Wilkinson, and Mary came up with this far-reaching plan. According to all accounts, the men came up with a plan for over a year. It just sat there. The men separated. They went on their ways. They went on in life. What happens is by 1805, Aaron Burr has kind of run into a dead end in his life, or by the end of 1805. Basically, Aaron Burr is no longer the vice president. It seems like everybody has shut the door in the face of Aaron Burr. And ladies and gentlemen, at the end of 1805 and beginning of 1806, Aaron Burr packs up, moves to Louisiana. Aaron Burr goes and finds Governor Wilkinson, and according to the letters, Aaron Burr basically says, I think we should do it. Ladies and gentlemen, the argument is Aaron Burr decides that this is a good plan. He begins to contact the men according to resources. Aaron Burr begins to form his own little militia. Anthony Merry, who of course is by now safe in England, based as strange and crazy as this may sound, is not able to provide support from the British Navy. So England is not coming to help you. So if this rebellion takes place, there will be no British naval support. However, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Or ma'am.
I just have one quick question about how was he like not impeached or anything? Or
For what?
For the duel. Like I know it was legal.
Dueling's legal.
But
remember what I said is after the duel, people or many states began to go against it. Remember, you cannot impeach a person for illegal activity. That's the problem. In 1804, to basically challenge a person, because remember, the reason they justify it is Alexander Hamilton had a legal right to say what? No. So when the two men went to the park and shot at each other, that was a way to deal with a problem. If you are looking at sort of the morality of dueling, it does begin to make people begin to question it. All right, let's finish up with the Essex, or the Burr conspiracy. Folks, what's the crazy part to me? This is the most amazing part of the whole thing. Anthony Merry could not get the British Navy, but he did provide Aaron Burr with 110,000 pounds of English silver. 110,000 pounds of English silver. Now think about that. Today, that would be millions of dollars. So basically, Anthony Merry was able to find English citizens who so much wanted revenge on America, were so angry with America, they donated money for this crazy plan. All right. Well, here's what happens. In 1806, Aaron Burr raised an army, and most people believe that the army was somewhere around 100 men. I mean, literally, that was his army. Why did he not need a bigger army? Because the belief was the governor was going to not object. The governor was not going to send an alarm. So literally, Aaron Burr would march, Wilkinson would basically concede Louisiana, and by the time anything happened, Aaron Burr would announce, I'm in control of Louisiana, and Burr would then lie and say he had an alliance with England. And then America would then pause and be concerned with how will England react. That's the plan. Of course, what goes wrong? As Aaron Burr is getting ready to do this, Governor Wilkinson apparently is the person who begins to start having second thoughts, cold feet. Maybe Governor Wilkinson remembers someone saying the name Benedict Arnold and remembers how well he was perceived and how well that turned out. Folks, the general belief is Governor Wilkinson sends a letter to the United States government saying, this is what has happened. The United States government sends soldiers to find and arrest Aaron Burr.
Can't Aaron Burr be impeached for treason?
He's not the vice president anymore at this point. You just remember his vice president's term ended in 1805. So ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Burr will be arrested and charged with treason. Now please understand, you guys are now worried about impeachment, which is an illegal offense. The treason is an attempt to overthrow Louisiana. Aaron Burr is actually charged with the overthrow or the attempted overthrow of Louisiana.
So, in the beginning, why would Wilkinson want to give up his power over Louisiana?
But I think you guys are missing the whole point. What is it that Wilkinson and Burr and Merry are really trying to do? They're trying to create a country. Now, I could be the governor of Louisiana, or I could be one of the main property owners in an entire country. We can make our own rules. And let's be honest, they probably had an axe to grind with Jefferson. And let's be honest, I mean, we all sometimes say stuff we probably shouldn't. Well, that's kind of where the problem comes in. Wilkinson is not really. We'll get to that in a second. Folks, here's where it gets complicated. Aaron Burr is arrested for treason, And for those of you who don't understand, treason is actually the highest court in the land. In fact, according to the Constitution, cases of treason actually go directly where? Supreme Court. Who is or was Aaron Burr? Folks, think about that. Our former vice president is being charged with treason of leading an overthrow against part of the country. This is serious. And the presiding judge will be none other than John Marshall. And guess who decides they want to get involved? Ladies and gentlemen, as the trial is coming, and this is why I cut Eli off, Thomas Jefferson becomes a royal nuisance. Thomas Jefferson, who maybe had a personal issue with Aaron Burr, Thomas Jefferson begins to go on a vendetta to get. How are we doing today?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Just sorry.
Hi.
Do we all know this is Mr. Tadlock? This is our district administrator, and this is my class.
Nice to meet you.
Okay.
And what grade level? What class?
AP US History.
AP US History.
And one German visitor.
One German. So I saw you earlier.
Actually, we have a couple of seniors and a couple of sophomores, depending on which class we're in.
This one's just
Okay, we're all
juniors.
juniors in this particular class.
You just had right.
Normally, that is the tradition, probably. All right. Former vice president up for treason. Thomas Jefferson goes on a personal vendetta. Thomas Jefferson begins to start giving anyone who promises to say anything. He grants pardons. What does a presidential pardon do? What's a presidential pardon do? Forgiveness, amnesty. Can anyone tell me what is the possible problem with that? Why do some people raise questions? Well, why would he say something? Isn't he the man being charged?
Yeah.
What is the problem?
Getting false witnesses and such.
Because they're just answering what? Why would you call them false witnesses?
Because they might say something against Burr that may or may not be true.
Okay. Folks, what are in order for these people to be saying stuff and to be getting pardoned, what are we therefore saying that they must have been a part of? Conspiracy of what? What are we talking about here? What is Aaron Burr being charged with?
Treason.
So that means all of these men were actually what?
Part of treason.
They were traitors. So Thomas Jefferson is basically giving everybody he possibly can a pardon in order to get who? Burr, the top traitor. What question? Doesn't that give you a problem? Why would that give you concern? But more importantly, if you pardon a person, are they going to tell the truth? Or are they going to tell you what you want to hear? Right? So, ladies and gentlemen, here's the situation. You have Thomas Jefferson. I'm sorry, sir. No? Can the president pardon people? Yes. Here's, see, in a second you have a right idea. Thomas Jefferson, why is he giving them pardons? What does he want them to do? Are most people going to testify about the treason? Why? Because they therefore doing. They're admitting to treason. Why don't you want to do that? You don't want to swing from a rope. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's the situation. You have Thomas Jefferson pardoning everybody else involved. Thomas Jefferson then publicly is giving speeches or interviews to the newspaper, and Thomas Jefferson repeatedly is saying Aaron Burr is what? He's a traitor. He's guilty. Every day. Remember in the 6th Amendment, it says we have the right to a fair and public trial. Every day, Thomas Jefferson showed up in the courtroom. He was there watching. Does anyone want to take a wild guess who begins to get pissed off? Does anybody care what Aaron Burr thinks?
No.
He's a scummy what? Nobody gives a crap. John Marshall starts getting pissed because what is the fight that begins? It becomes a fight between, is it Marshall's court or is it Jefferson's court? Who is determining guilt or innocence? And ladies and gentlemen, Marshall literally argues because Jefferson is giving pardons to everybody in the sun. It is hard to get accurate information because are we just simply hearing what you need to do to get the pardon, or is it really the truth? John Marshall basically says most of the people who testify were either granted pardons, so their testimony is a little bit questionable, or it's hearsay. It's secondhand information. Ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Burr will be acquitted. He is found innocent. He is not executed. He is not found guilty. Thomas Jefferson is angry. John Marshall simply goes with what? I had to go with the law. There wasn't enough evidence. You rushed to tell everybody instead of making sure that the job was done. At this point, we're going to make Griffin happy. As soon as the United States government announced that it was acquitted, I believe it's 5 states put out individual arrest warrants. 5 states basically said if the federal government failed, we will do it. Some states, like New York, charged him with murder. They argued because the original started in New York, even though the duel wasn't. Ladies and gentlemen, there are people that are sick and tired of Aaron Burr. There are people who believe, like Hamilton said, he's a dirty, rotten scoundrel. Could you do this? Let's be honest. Once you execute a person, you can go back and review the case, but it's going to be a little moot. Aaron Burr packs up and he heads out of the country. So please be aware. Aaron Burr gets himself involved with several very controversial issues. Now, the last thing, and I say it every year just to sort of give us that final, who is this guy? Ladies and gentlemen, at the age of 80, Aaron Burr's wife divorces him because he committed adultery. Also in his 80s, Aaron Burr will father 2 illegitimate children. My point, folks, everything seems to indicate that Aaron Burr was a man who believed laws did not apply to him. He was a man who appeared to always find a way to get himself into bad situations. And that's what I would kind of look at. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have one last major item under Jefferson, and then we will finally move towards James Madison. I do have a term list for this unit. I forgot to hand it out, so I'll do that real quickly. Please notice, this is a large list. It just tells you that, again, if you look in the textbook, there are 3, 2.5 large sections. Some of these are terms that we've actually gone over in class. Other ones will be maybe a little bit smaller. For those of you who have not figured it out yet, by this point, you should have a study guide begun. Your study guide should be done with, concluded with, most of Thomas Jefferson. We've really only got one item left. And my recommendation would be, if you're having trouble, try to get the study guide organizing right away. The last item dealing with Thomas Jefferson is going to be involving trade. Once again, you can start with that good old problem of search, seizure, and impressment. And what is impressment? Sir?
Taking people on the seas.
What do you mean taking?
Kidnapping them.
What is the argument of how they can kidnap people?
They're their own citizens.
They're basically they're Englishmen and we're just forcing them into the service. Good. So ladies and gentlemen, what we want to look at is we go back to that same constant problem, search, seizure. Why is there problems on the ocean? What is causing the search, seizure, and impressment? Why is it happening?
English has much stronger naval.
But why would England just go and start doing this? Why is there a benefit? So what I'm asking is what causes England to be a big jerk?
Supposedly the Americans are trading with the French.
And what is going on in France? What? It's more than the revolution's over. We're now in the middle of the Napoleonic Wars. So ladies and gentlemen, Napoleon has begun to seek his revenge. And ladies and gentlemen, we are about to get sort of a few very concrete items. The first one, you can put the two together. First, we have what is called the Berlin Decree, and the second is the Milan Decree. These are French. Berlin and Milan gentlemen, we could give you a differentiation between the two, but really it's probably not worth the time. Ladies and gentlemen, Napoleon Bonaparte, and what does that tell you? Berlin, Milan, Italy. What is the first thing you want to reference? That gives you an idea of how far Hitler's empire, no, I'm heading into wrong chapters. That is showing how far Napoleon has expanded. He has basically conquered almost all of Germany, and he has conquered northern Italy. Napoleon is moving quickly. The problem is, the one country that is causing him problem is England. Why can't he just annihilate England? The stupid island, and what do you need to deal with to get to the island? The British Navy. Ladies and gentlemen, as the Germans and the Italians and the Spanish are beginning to fall to Napoleon, he needs to look for a way to deal with the English. Berlin and Milan are going to be his idea. Ladies and gentlemen, what Hitler, why do I keep wanting to talk about Hitler? What Napoleon comes up with, oh snow. I'm getting everybody excited, see? It's a little bit. All right, the entire class is on delay now. Folks, what Berlin and Milan are is Napoleon is going to completely change tactics. Napoleon announces, here, I'm sorry, let's give one more fact first. What you might want to do is you might want to put down the name Trafalgar. There is a battle that takes place where Napoleon tries the more direct approach. The Battle of Trafalgar is down here, kind of off what would be the Straits of Gibraltar. Basically, Napoleon is going to try, what was the first way to beat the English is you basically go into a battle, you destroy their navy, and this is largely over control of the Mediterranean. Because whoever controls the Straits of Gibraltar is able to control access to the Mediterranean Sea. The French lost. So his direct beat the English at their own game failed. Idea number two is how do I weaken, hurt England without a direct conflict? The Berlin and Milan Decree are going to be blockades. Napoleon decides on a very drastically different tactic. Napoleon decides that he is going to use kind of the open ocean. He is going to use his navy in less of a conflict. It's kind of draw them out. The English cannot afford, in his mind, to abandon England because that would open England up to attack. What Hitler is going to do is he is basically going to kind of take... I don't know.
1800s,
I can't
Cleveland,
think.
1800s.
Maybe they're related. That's the guy, the little short guy with the bad temper. Thank you. Next time I throw something at him.
Say Bugs Bunny instead.
I don't know. We'll blame our German student. I'm kidding on that, I won't. She doesn't even know me well enough for me to be goofing around. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, that we probably start some international incident. On a positive note. Well, I probably shouldn't say anything good about it.
Just stop.
He's closer to winning. Napoleon just screwed up.
Just
All right.
don't say anything.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good day. That little short French guy decides that he's going to place a blockade. And here's the big issue. If you look at the difference of why is there Berlin and Milan, is in the first blockade, Napoleon is going to focus on trying to disrupt English goods, English products. He is going to focus more on anything going to England, English ships, England colonies. In the second one, what is the main difference? Napoleon expands the blockade that basically any nation, including neutrals, if you try to trade with England, if you try to trade with English colonies, Napoleon is basically now giving you notice that you are now subject to search, seizure, confiscation, or to be outright destroyed. So the first thing you want to think of, folks, is Berlin and Milan directly get the United States involved because as a neutral nation, the French are telling us you can't trade with England, England allies, England colonies. Okay? The next thing you need to write down, and folks, these go together. is the orders in council.
What?
Orders in council. The orders in council is, of course, the English equivalent. So the French put up a blockade, England puts up a blockade. Now, this is where the interesting part comes in. This is where being an AP class becomes much more fun. If you look at the map, the United States is faced with a simple problem. If we try to trade with England, what are we going to run into? The French, the Berlin, and Milan. That would be what you want to say. If we try to trade with France, we run into. So therefore, the quickest thing, that's what we started this with, America is being harassed on the ocean. Search, seizure, and impressment. It becomes constant. It becomes daily. It is a pain in the butt. And when people get upset, they complain to who? The president. So the president is constantly being told, and the president still is Jefferson. Ladies and gentlemen, every single day. Hold on. Is Jefferson overly familiar, and is Jefferson's background in merchant trade? No. Where is his background, skill, and expertise? Agriculture. Okay? So as these people complain and moan, this is not Jefferson's comfort area. Does everybody understand that? Here's the big question. Is the Berlin Decree, the Milan Decree, the orders in council devastating American trade?
Yes.
I'm asking you guys a question.
No.
No. What do you mean no?
Most of the orders.
Okay. But our largest trade is clearly Europe.
So it is devastating because we're cutting off our major.
Let me ask a different question. Is it annoying? Is it irritating? Does the orders in council, Berlin Decree, and Milan Decree work?
No.
Where's the problem? Because of the Berlin Decree, Milan Decree, and orders in council, what would be the effect that that has on people in Europe? It's harder to get crap, right? And if it's harder to get crap, therefore, what does that create? Come on, capitalists!
They're going to pay more to get stuff.
There becomes higher demand. If there's higher demand, what does that do for the price people are willing to pay? Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to explain is a problem. Jefferson hears everybody complaining, and the general belief is America is losing money. That is going to be, sort of, said over and over. We are selling less. We're going to get to that. Folks, here's the issue. Apparently, the reason you guys can answer this, I got a bunch of all squeaky clean, really good sweet kids in here. If I had any drug dealers, you would have already figured this out. Does anybody know what would happen if you had legalized marijuana? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, how would people honestly grow marijuana?
It would be legal.
Okay, but how would you grow it? You would grow it in large farms. You would cultivate it by, hey, let's not act like we're third graders. Is there any reason marijuana couldn't be cultivated with combines and farm equipment? Instead of selling it by some guy on the street corner by the ounce, why couldn't you sell it by the bushel baskets? Ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea what the pricing is for marijuana, but I will tell you this. If you legalized it and made it a normal farm product, the price would do what?
Drop.
How is marijuana any different than selling hay? But if you made it legal, would it be any different? In fact, in most states like Wisconsin, marijuana actually grows more naturally. It's a very hardy plant that is resistant to things. Has less issues with heat and disease. For those of you who do not get it yet, because of the Orders in Council, the Berlin Decree, and the Milan Decree, what happens?
We're getting more money.
What?
We're getting more money.
What do you mean?
Whenever we do actually sell our stuff.
There's a danger. There's a chance of being searched. There's a chance that your cargo could be seized. There's a chance people could be impressed. Ladies and gentlemen, during this time, trade prices went up 10 times. If you were a trader, your profit rate was 10 times normal. Now, let's be honest. Every so many times your ship would be stopped. Sometimes it might be searched. Maybe some of your crewmen get taken. But think about, do the math. If you know you could do something and you could make 10 times the normal rate, would people be willing to take a risk? Why do people sell drugs today? Why do people do other risky or dangerous things? Because they believe it's worth the risk. Are the merchants going to share this information?
Hamilton would love this one.
Sure. Now we're missing something. Are we selling more product or less product? Less. Much of what America sells to other people is what kind of products? What we export. But what is the big exports of this country?
Raw.
Tobacco.
Cotton, tobacco, agricultural crap, right? Now think in your brain. If we are selling less crap but at a higher profit, what is happening inside the country? We have what? So ladies and gentlemen, in the United States, if I'm a merchant, there is becoming a shortage or a surplus of tobacco and cotton. Surplus. So if I'm the merchant, am I buying cotton and tobacco for more or less? Less. But when I trade it to England and France, I get more. Why would I not want to tell everybody about how this is working? Who's the everybody else? Who's the person getting ripped off? The farmers. So ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand. The merchants complain about a lot about the search season impressment. For the most part, the merchants, they don't like being harassed, but they actually are making money. Keep that in the back of your head. With that, please enter in the Chesapeake Leopard affair. If you want to be proper, you can write USS Chesapeake, HMS Leopard. The Chesapeake Leopard affair. It actually looks just like leopard. Guess what? Folks, those are both warships. We're in the middle of the Orders in Council. One day the Chesapeake is patrolling and it's really just off the U.S. coast. The Leopard approaches, puts up a flag, the ships stop, and the Leopard asks to search. Remember, the Chesapeake is a USS warship. We say no. The Leopard basically moves away, and without warning, the Leopard opens fire. The Chesapeake will be damaged. The Leopard comes back. They search the ship, and they actually, I believe, they impress 2 sailors off the Chesapeake. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States of America has just what? By who?
French.
Leopard is whose country? HMS. English. His or her Majesty's ship. Ladies and gentlemen of the United States. Now, what's the problem? If we, as much as Jefferson, you guys go back to your past practice, what is the problem with immediately reacting against the Leopard? Sure, but what's the bigger problem? We don't have a Navy. We have a small. I think we have, what, 8 ships? You guys are still missing it. If you declare war on England, therefore you are helping, allying, benefiting Napoleon. So you now have a dual-edged sword. Whether you like it or not, anything you do to hurt, weaken, or go against England is benefit to the French. Napoleon's a little bit of a loose cannon here. Quentin already answered this. Folks, as a response to the Chesapeake Leopard, they have to go together on the test. If you mention one without the other, you are going to be in trouble. It is no good. Because the Chesapeake, now think about Jefferson. Jefferson is a good, honest man who wants to help people. The merchants have been whining about what? Search season impressment. The southern people are whining that their agricultural prices are too low. The British Navy is too big. Ladies and gentlemen, as a response to Chesapeake Leopard, Thomas Jefferson announces the Embargo Act of 1807. The Embargo Act of 1807 says America will trade with no warring nation. The United States literally quits. We stop. We basically say we are not going to intervene.
What year was it?
1807. Let me repeat it. Folks, the key item is by order of the president, the United States cannot trade with any warring nation. Who would that include then? It's both. Ladies and gentlemen, because of the Berlin Decree, the Milan Decree, the Orders of Council, we can't trade with either country, right? As long as they are fighting, America is going to stay out. What is the number one thing the Embargo Act of 1807 does? But how? Does it really stop the blockade? Did England and France remove their blockades? So what does it do? What is the purpose? When you look, remember I said he's a good guy? What is Jefferson really trying to do? Ladies and gentlemen, Jefferson's only purpose is to safety. Does any Americans die because of this? Will any more Americans die? Will any more ships be searched? Americans are safe. England and France are going to, do you really think that Thomas Jefferson is saying that England and France are going to stop their war? No. What is the effect this is going to have on the country? Ladies and gentlemen, this is what Thomas Jefferson didn't understand. Thomas Jefferson had seen what was going on with the farmers. It is estimated the Embargo Act of 1807 cost the United States over $100 million. Basically, the United States will lose $100 million a year in trade. This is where Jefferson and the merchants were not on eye to eye. During the Chesapeake Leopard, but the embargo, the search and seizure, the Milan, Berlin Decree, we were making money. We were making money because of the shortages in Europe. The Embargo Act basically says we can't trade other than with, for example, you can still trade with Asia or places like that.
Didn't he have anybody on his cabinet who was smart with money? Like, at least a treasurer who could do math.
But when you say smart with money, I mean, you have a situation where what is the only thing you hear from the merchants? What is the only thing the merchants tell the government? We're being. Do the merchants in any way, shape, or form want to bring up or highlight how well they're doing? No. They are going to highlight every time someone is searched, right? Because please understand, if they bring up how well they're doing, who's the first person that's going to question that? The farmers. And historically, which group of people does Jefferson look out for? The farmers. And clearly the issue is going to be, why are the farm prices so low if the merchants are making a killing? Clearly the merchant's argument is going to be, we are taking the risk. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, in 1809, for 1 year we had the Embargo Act. The Embargo Act is a complete failure. It hurts the United States. It does nothing to remove the Orders in Council. It does nothing to remove the Berlin Milan Decree. And in 1809, Thomas Jefferson realizes it's kind of right before he was about to leave the presidency. Remember, you're elected in an even year. Madison is about to become president. Thomas Jefferson passed what is called the Non-Intercourse Act. So, as you're looking at what's going on, the Embargo Act was Jefferson's response to the Chesapeake Leopard. The Embargo Act is literally kind of a direct reaction. Non-Intercourse Act is a way to try to fix. The Non-Intercourse Act makes two major changes. Number one, the Non-Intercourse Act says the United States specifically cannot trade with England and France. In the original embargo, it was any nation at war, so that would include any nation connected to England or France, any nation allied to England or France. Let me give you a little help. The Non-Intercourse Act basically says America cannot trade nations that are being aggressive to us. What is the aggressive thing that is happening to us? But it's not really the impressment and seizure. It's the blockades, right? The Milan, Berlin, and non-intercourse. So ladies and gentlemen, the Non-Intercourse Act is a second part. In the Non-Intercourse Act, it basically says that the president can choose to move or remove punishments if those countries move their policies. Under the Non-Intercourse Act, if France would remove the Berlin and Milan Decree, Jefferson could return by opening up trade with France. If England would remove the Orders in Council, Jefferson could kind of reciprocate by ordering it up. So please understand, the Non-Intercourse Act gives the president the ability to basically try to interact in the system by basically removing restrictions against nations who are being more open with the United States. James Madison is now your president. He beat Pinckney. What we're going to see is the Federalists are falling apart. It's a fairly lopsided 1908. Again, I wouldn't get too worried. Let's finish with our trade problem. Next will come Macon's Bill number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, Macon's Bill number 1 says the United States, Macon, M-A-C-O-N. Macon's Bill number 1 says the United States. All right, tomorrow we will try to finish up with the trade. Please remember, tonight after school, we are going to start looking at the multiple choice. If you are available, I really do encourage, it would be a good way to do it where you make sure that you are not only getting the right answer, but you can get